Dynasty Nerds on Better Sports Network.
Oh, week one is in the boats. Week one is in the boats. We're sailing, people. Week one is in the books. That's right. The NFL season has kicked off. We are a day away from the beginning of week two. We have so much to discuss. My name is Garret Price. I am your host on the Dynasty Nerd Show on the Better Sports Network. Lots of things to get into. Of course, at around 10:15, we're going to be bringing in Bennett. We're going to be playing a little bit of a game, patience or panic. Guys that had maybe a little bit of a rough week one, but we want to see how we're feeling about them for the rest of the season, how we're feeling about them long-term from a dynasty perspective. Lots of good stuff to talk about there. But then in just a few moments, my guy Pete's coming in. You know him as Peter Bartausky. He has had some of the most interesting interviews that we have ever had on the Dynasty Nerd Show have come from my time with him. So excited to talk to him. We're going to be talking about a lot of the favorite moments that we had from week one and a lot of our least favorite moments from week one. And yes, we'll be talking, some injuries, I'm sure. We'll be talking about some of the big performances, all of that kind of stuff. But some of it just also our personal favorite things that we got to experience during week one. So lots of exciting things going on there. Tomorrow night, we have the kickoff of week two. We've got the Eagles and the Vikings, so we might even get a chance to touch on that. We'll talk a little bit about these major injuries, all kinds of good stuff. So without further ado, let's bring on my buddy Pete to kick this show off. Pete, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. I'm super zoomed in right now.
You are,
because
it's like real close to your face.
Yeah, I got nothing to hide.
Look, you look good. Look good, feel good, play good.
Oh, thank you. I broke my lens actually heading out to do a shoot. I never put on camera lenses. Not camera lenses, the caps on the camera lens. But this time I decided to do that, and it slipped out of my hand as I was putting it on there, and the lens broke. So
oh no, Dan's in the house.
Hey,
Dan. What's up, Dan?
I'm doing pretty good though. Week one's in the books.
And those camera lenses are not cheap either.
Nope, not this one especially.
See,
so
Justin says I'm trying to listen to the pod and you go live. Hey, that's how it works, man. I'm available 24/7. Whether it's in podcast form, YouTube form, whether it's here on the Better Sports Network, I'm on all the time. You can find me anywhere. So yeah, lots to get into, lots to discuss from week one.
Man, so much.
Peter, we're going to talk about some of our favorite moments from week one and some of our least favorite moments from week one. So lots of ways we can take this, and it doesn't have to be player specific, doesn't have to be teams, like whatever you want to say about week one. It's all available. All right. So Peter, week one, what was your favorite thing that happened in week one?
Oh man, favorite thing. This is kind of a favorite / least favorite thing.
See, here you would do this. I give you the option to do a favorite thing or a least favorite thing. You're like, somehow this is magically both.
This is both. And it's a reminder that we do not know anything.
Okay.
That when you can have your guesses and you can have, what's the word? Knowledgeable guesses?
Educated guesses?
What's that? Education. Yep. Educated guesses. You can have educated guesses on things. But week one, when actual games start happening, that is the time that you start learning stuff. Preseason and off season and all this hype that we're trying to weed through, and then we finally actually see what matters and what doesn't matter.
Right.
As the games start, it's really fun. It's also really frustrating when you have this old narrative in your head.
Right.
And you're totally wrong. But are you? Because it's week one, so
right.
You always have that too. But yeah, so that's one of my favorite / least favorite things.
Yeah, overall, my week one went real well. A lot of the players that I was high on did pretty well, except for the injuries. The injuries really wrecked me because I have a lot of Rodgers. I have a lot of J.K. Dobbins. We'll touch on that in a moment.
Oh, man.
So that hurt. But injuries aside, it went pretty well. But I would have to say my most favorite thing, and if Dan Toomey is still on, he's going to appreciate this as much, if not more than anything else, was Tyjae Spears. Now, if you are a box score scout, you'll be like, Garrett, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but he only had 27 yards and he only had one catch. Like, why are we so excited about Tyjae Spears? Well, the big thing was snap-wise, he actually led the running back room ahead of Derrick Henry. He had 34 snaps to Derrick Henry's 30. He had stretches where he was the guy on the field. He did a lot of stuff in passing work and things like that, and had an opportunity for a touchdown. And even though you would say like only 27 yards, 3 carries, nine yards a rush. So this is the opportune time to go get Tyjae Spears. If you are in a redraft league and he is still out there, which in Yahoo is only about 15% drafted or owned. So he's 85% available out there in Yahoo leagues. Go get Tyjae Spears right.
Are you getting Josh Kelly or Tyjae?
Oh, Tyjae. Always.
Really?
Yeah. Well, look, if it really looks like Austin Eckler is going to be out, then you would. Yeah. In a perfect world, I'd like to get both, but waivers have already run, so he's still 85% available even after that. Kelly's out there and available. Kelly, I would start if Austin Eckler is out. I would start him over Spears.
Okay.
But that's only with the caveat that Eckler is actually out. So yeah, that was my favorite thing from week 1. And Dan said, thanks for dropping the stat about the pass blocking on the pod too. I had to make sure I gave you credit, man. I had to give credit where credit was due. So absolutely. All right, Peter, what was your least favorite thing from week 1?
Oh man. So we have 2 sets of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara this year. And it's kind of fun, but it's also super not fun. Okay, we got Robinson and Algier, and we got Gibbs and Montgomery. Now, all 4 of these people are going to be fantasy relevant. But the question is, how much? And we don't know. Is Montgomery going to just literally take all the goal line touches because it's super easy to score touchdowns for the Lions on the goal line? Or, will Gibbs get that role further on? I don't think so. So you're going to have these 4 good running backs on 2 good teams. So that it's going to be super confusing. You're going to have some weeks that you feel like a genius and some weeks like an idiot. And it doesn't matter who you play. So that is one of my least favorite things. Side note, though, obviously the injuries are my least favorite thing.
Injuries are for sure the least favorite. Absolutely.
Terrible week, but I feel like everyone says that, right? It's,
right. That's what the league. Yeah. That's what the league just commented about. He said, "Such a bummer about Rodgers. Numbers for Garrett Wilson don't bode well for this season as long as Zach Wilson is the quarterback." And that's true. The Aaron Rodgers. It sucks for Aaron Rodgers. It sucks for the New York Jets, but it also sucks for people that have Garrett Wilson and or maybe Alan Lazard or somebody like that on their fantasy football teams, because Garrett Wilson I was high on for this season. I had him ranked this season wide receiver 7 on the year. Dynasty wise, I have him wide receiver 4. Like, I was expecting this to be the year where he potentially enters that top tier of receivers. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Now, we'll see what happens if they bring in a veteran. But as long as Zach Wilson's a quarterback, it is going to be trickier for him. So that
Where are you projecting him?
What's that?
Where are you projecting Wilson now? I have him as like a mid to low end wide receiver 2.
I have him as a high end wide receiver 2. So I'm still a little bit more bullish, but he does enter that wide receiver 2 range now for me, as opposed to being a wide receiver 1 like I had him before. So definitely a bummer. with that, let's while we're on the injury kick, let's talk about J.K. Dobbins as well. What are you doing in this situation? It's a huge bummer. Like, what are you doing in Dynasty? Like, are you just holding? Are you trying to trade? What are you going to do?
Oh, I mean, if you can trade him, sure, but you're not, right? But
what would you trade him for?
A third. I hate saying this, but he's done as a starter. His best case scenario is Deonta Foreman, but Foreman didn't have a torn ACL that he was recovering from too. Dobbins has more talent, so you never know, especially with modern medicine nowadays. But he's such a lottery ticket that I don't really see really turning into anything, because it's going to take.
The tough part is he's a lottery ticket that the payout is like $5.
Yeah,
like it's not one of those lottery tickets where like, oh, you could win $100,000. Like, no, it's a lottery ticket where you pay $1 and you might get $5, but your odds of getting $5 are less than 5%. Like, because that's the tough part.
He's not going to be on the Ravens next year. I mean, maybe he might be, but he's on his last year of his contract now. Any contract that he signs later isn't going to be that valuable. Especially you look at like the contract Alexander Madison signed. You know, even running back like that wasn't super big. So, yeah, it's frustrating. Would you trade him for a third? Let's say a projected early third, or what are you doing?
Early third is the cutoff for me. If somebody was offering me an early third, I think I would probably take it. But that's about the cutoff for me. Otherwise, I'm just going to hold him and see if he turns into a decent committee back that I can, utilize on flex or on bye weeks and injuries and stuff like that. But the hopes and dreams of him being this, upper echelon running back are just dead and gone, which sucks. But
that touchdown he scored was so fun too.
It was a great touchdown. He should have had 3 of them.
Yep. So let me ask you this. Is there any Ravens running back that you believe in for the rest of the season? Or are they do you just pray that they're going to sign Kareem Hunt?
Yeah, I have a feeling they already kind of wanted to use a committee. We've seen Gus Edwards be around before. Justice Hill was getting some touches. So I think those 2 guys are going to be there. And then I wouldn't be shocked at all if they end up signing somebody. So my guess is it's going to end up being a situation kind of like it was last year, where it's just, no, I don't want to use any of them. It's all gross and icky, unfortunately. But I think that is going to open up more unique opportunities for a guy like Zay Flowers. They already used him twice in the running game last week. And I think that they're going to continue to feed him the ball because of this injury to Dobbins. Even with Mark Andrews back, they're going to utilize the short passing game similar to how they would do the running game. And so I think they're going to utilize him in unique ways. So that might boost his stock actually slightly. But going back to some of our favorite things, we have Hi Dan 45 saying Breece Hall looking great on limited touches. We have the League FFB saying the Tua show. And that was going to be another one of mine on here a couple weeks ago. I talked about my favorite pick right now for MVP was Tua. And then I went on to say, and the offensive player of the year is going to be Tyreek Hill. Like, those were my picks this year because I really believe in this team. I believe in this offense. I picked them to win the division. So I also picked the Jets to go to the Super Bowl, and that's not looking great at the moment. But I can't control injuries, people.
But that wasn't anything of your doing.
Right. And the rest of the team actually looks really good. The rest of the Jets, the defense looks legit. They have the receivers, like could have been, but we won't know. But I am all aboard the Tua train. He was, I think, a huge discount this offseason, and a guy that you were getting in the 3rd round for the most part in super flex leagues early on in the offseason.
4th.
Yeah, I was going to say early on in the 4th offseason, you're getting him in the 4th and 5th. He moved up as the offseason went on, and he snuck into the 3rd round. But now, Peter, like let's be honest. would you consider him a potential first-round pick in Superflex? And I know it's one game, and it might be an overreaction, but would you consider him a potential first-round pick?
So I ran a mock on Monday, and actually ran 2. But the first one I ran, he went 202 in Superflex, and so that's kind of where he kind of broke into that Anthony Richardson tier.
Yeah.
For me, of like, okay, let's go for ceiling. And the nice thing with Tua, though, is his injuries worry. His concussion stuff is always a worry, but
sure,
he does bring a lot more of a floor than a Richardson does or Fields, even though Fields is out of that tier for me. But he's always been. So it's definitely something that I'm willing to think about, especially if, all of a sudden we could be talking about him right behind Trevor Lawrence.
So let's do a quick name game here. All right,
Yep.
Who would you rather have? So before he was going behind Dak Prescott, would you rather have him or Dak Prescott? Would you rather have him or Bryce and CJ Stroud? You'd rather have Tua, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which was weird because they were getting drafted around the same spot at one point in the offseason.
Yeah.
Would you rather have him or Deshaun Watson?
Tua.
Okay. Tua or Dak Prescott?
Tua.
Tua or Anthony Richardson?
Oh man. That's where it's tough. I go Richardson.
Okay. Last two guys left in that tier-ish range. Or actually last 3 guys. Tua or Lamar?
Tua. Lamar looked bad.
He did. He did not look good. Tua or Fields?
Oh, Tua, hands down.
Yeah, you're not a Fields guy. That's right. All right. And then Tua or Lawrence?
Lawrence.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, you're now putting him up into the RB7, RB8 overall in Dynasty.
Yeah, quarterback. Yeah. He's a quarterback, not a running back, but
oh yeah, did I say RB? QB.
Yeah. Oh man. I always never know if I'm supposed to correct people or not when they say that, because I'm sure I say a lot of things wrong too. Yeah, that's where he is. And if he is healthy, that's where he should be. Honestly, he should probably be higher, because with those wide receiver weapons, it's very hard to not score fantasy points. Would you take anyone would you do Watson or Tua?
So I moved Tua all the way up in my rankings, my dynasty rankings, moved him all the way up to running back. Sorry, I keep saying running back, quarterback. I moved him up to quarterback 8. So it was Mahomes and then Herbert, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Lawrence, Fields, Tua. So I have him ahead of Lamar, ahead of Dak, ahead of Deshaun. So I have him as 8, and that put him at 112 for me overall.
Wow.
So
okay,
I have him in the first round at this point. And he's a guy I've been high on, and I thought he was such a good value. And granted, you do have the inherent risk of the concussions and all that, but all of these guys have risks. As we just saw, we lost 2 very talented players this week to Achilles injuries. You never know when a guy's going to get injured. There are things that can make you more susceptible, sure, but there is an inherent risk with every player because of the sport that they play. We could lose any of them at any point. So at that point, like, I just don't want to play it too safe. Like, give me the guy that can get it done, and 2 can get it done, and he's really young still, which I think is a big part of this. He's a lot younger than Deshaun and Dak and those guys. So that's a big plus.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get into more of our favorites, Peter. Another favorite thing that happened for you this weekend on week 1.
So this is kind of a weird thing for me to say, Garrett, but you're used to this by now. I love being wrong about players when I'm lower on them than they show that they're able to be. I love the fact that I'm wrong about Zay Flowers. He looked awesome. I was totally down on him. I didn't draft him anywhere. He was my wide receiver 4.
Okay.
So I just wasn't able to grab him anywhere. And now I wish that I have. But I love learning new things.
Yeah.
And it's week 1, so who knows? But one of the things that worried me so much about Zay Flowers was his ability to go up against press man, all this stuff, just physical corners. Watching the Ravens game made me realize that offensive schemes can hide that. Not always, but when you have a player like Zay Flowers going in motion, you can't stop him. You can't do press man on a guy in motion.
Right.
So there are so many ways that I saw them starting to use Zay Flowers, and I'm like, okay, there we go. I see it on the field. I was wrong about him, and I'll learn. And I'm excited because he's going to be really fun for fantasy football and just the NFL. So that was one of my favorite things.
No, that was a really good one, Peter, because I appreciate the humility on that, because we all get guys wrong, and we don't even know that we got Zay Flowers right or wrong yet for sure. It is still too early for that. But knowing that we have the opportunity to be able to grow and learn in this space is one of the most underrated attributes. The first year of Jared Wackerly and I's Nerd Score, the wide receivers, we did not do a good job on the wide receivers. We did well on the running backs. We did not do a good job on the wide receivers. But every year since then, we've drastically improved and outperformed draft capital because we learned a lot of lessons that first year, And so there are things that we get the opportunity to touch on and learn and grow in that I think are really significant. And it's good to go back, reevaluate your process. What did I miss? What did I learn? What was I not aware of before? All of those types of things do make a big difference in how we evaluate players moving forward. So I appreciate that, because usually we hate being wrong on players, but there are opportunities to learn and grow in all of it. So going to another thing that I really loved this week was I got to be a homer for once this week. Like, the Browns looked really good. Like, the Browns played really well, and more so on the defensive side of the football, more so than anything. But the Browns looked really like they shut the Bengals offense down completely. Now, the weather did play a part in that. It was not a great weather game, but the Browns offense had to play in the same conditions that the Bengals offense had to play in, and they were able to score 20+ points. That's right. My man, Dan's trying to campaign to be my best friend. I think we're about to become best friends overall. So
little elf best friends.
That's right. That's right. Did you hear Jamar Chase's comments after the game? Oh, it was great. I loved it.
It was so great.
It was so funny. But all of that being said, especially week 1, I think Cleveland has won 2 week 1 games since coming back in 1999. So that's 24 seasons worth of games. They've won 2 in week 1. So this was the 3rd. So we don't get the opportunity to celebrate early very often. So it was a big deal for Cleveland. So yes, I'm being a homer. Yes, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with fantasy football, but man, that was great in week 1 to be able to just sit back and enjoy a victory in Cleveland.
Oh man. How are you feeling about so we talked about the Browns, but so obviously Burrow's calf injury is still kind of there.
Sure.
Or something, that's a good excuse. But are you worried at all? You're probably going to talk with Dennis sooner, but like, are you worried about the Bengals? offense, or do you think that they're going to get together?
And Dennis and I will definitely talk about it. Overall, no, I'm not too worried about it. We saw a lot of quarterbacks, and this was another thing that I was going to bring up as a negative. We saw a lot of high-profile quarterbacks this week look very, very mortal. Lamar Jackson did not look good. Jalen Hurts did not look good. Joe Burrow did not look good. Josh Allen looked pretty terrible. Daniel Jones looked horrific. We saw a lot of guys that we are kind of used to seeing be average to great that just looked blah. I mean, outside of Tua, I think Tua is the only high profile quarterback that you can say had a really good week. The next best quarterbacks on the week were probably Brock Purdy and Jordan Love. And if you would have said that ahead of time, your top 3 quarterbacks, overall in the week are going to be, and I know they weren't necessarily the top 3 fantasy quarterbacks, but I would have laughed that those were the top 3 guys. That wouldn't make any sense to me. But sure enough, they were. And you're right. Mac Jones did have a good week as well. He played surprisingly well because it looked like it was about to be a bloodbath early on. And then all of a sudden, the Eagles just stopped scoring, and the Patriots made that game really interesting towards the end there. So that was pretty fun to see. All right, Peter, give me another thing that was like a wah, 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 wah.
Oh, man, let's see. Okay, Desmond Ritter sucks. I hate to say it, but here's the thing is he is not a quarterback that Arthur Smith will look at play and be like, you know what, I do need to throw the ball more. He's not going to be – so – there's going to be 0 passing volume in that offense. And
the hard part is and you could 100% be right. Desmond Ritter could be terrible. I really don't know for sure. But it's going to be tough to really know because they're just not going to throw the ball downfield much.
Well, here's the thing is his first passing play, he misreads a crossing route. And he throws it into double coverage. The ball bounces up, and it goes to catch it 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then he falls down on it. Just bat the ball down.
Right?
Why are you catching it? So stuff like that where it's showing that his brain's not quite at that football level yet. In those little tiny things, and he's a very smart guy, but plays like that does not earn reps in Arthur Smith's system. If you lose them 4 yards on a incompletion, you're not going to pass very much. So it is kind of a chicken and an egg situation, but I am just not excited for that passing game.
No, that whole offense is going to be really, really difficult because the fantasy potential in that offense is incredible. Incredible, both in the passing game and the running game. But it
should be the version of the Dolphins.
Another
not as fast, but almost as talented right there.
Yeah, you just don't have the quarterback and the coach combination to make it hum. And that's the difference. When you have Tua and McDaniels instead of Arthur Smith and Desmond Ritter, that's a very different situation. But they do have some big time players that can make some big time plays. But yeah, it's definitely underwhelming. I'll say that for sure. Definitely underwhelming so far for Arthur Smith and that offense. All right, let's get back on the positive train. I like feeling good. I like the positivity more than the downside. So another thing that I thought, actually, look at that, Michael Anthony,
Richardson looked legit, man.
Richardson looked really good this week. I think that was another positive because it could have been bad. Jacksonville is a good team with some good defensive pieces. They're a young and up and coming squad. They're coached well. It's a good team. And you have a team in Indianapolis that is brand new head coach, a subpar offensive line, not great passing game weapons outside of Michael Pittman Jr. Like, nothing against Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, but they're not a top tier receiving core by any stretch of the imagination. And the best piece of that offense, and Jonathan Taylor, is not there. So, and you saw they could not run the ball. Like Deion Jackson, like whoever they put back there, it did not matter. They were not getting the ball. They were not moving the ball on the ground unless Anthony Richardson did it. So for him to do as much as he did in week one, to one, put them in position to be in that game late. Obviously, they took the loss, but they were in the game late. And also to put up the fantasy football numbers that he put up. He didn't make a lot of bad decisions. He was smart with the ball. He showed off his running ability. He showed off his throwing ability. He got my boy Michael Pittman Jr. involved. Like all of those things, he looked like Superman out there. He looked like a guy that can just say, okay, it might not all be here right now. It might not all be working, but you guys just hop on my back and I'm going to carry us to the promised land. That's what it looked like to me.
Yep. No, he looked, and that is such good news for Michael Pittman.
Oh, it's
such
huge.
good news because he was being drafted borderline wide receiver 3.
Yeah,
and if he can get some volume there, some quality volume too, he's going to be a huge value this year. And everyone on that Colts offense, not everyone. I think the running back room will be pretty bad, but
until Jonathan Taylor comes back.
Yeah. Do you think he comes back?
I do. I think he comes back week 5. I think he's made his point. And the hard part is going back a second to the J.K. Dobbins thing. This is something that's going to be used by both the running backs to prove their point and the owners to prove their point. Because the running backs are going to say, this is exactly why we need these deals and this guaranteed money and these contracts, because we don't know how long we have. And the owners are going to say, exactly. We don't know how long you guys have. That's why we don't want to pay you a lot of money. We don't know that you're that valuable, and we could lose you in a moment's notice. It's one of the most volatile positions in the NFL. So both sides are going to use that same argument, and they're both correct, but it's going to completely put them at an impasse, and that's going to make it really tough. So I think it is going to be one of those situations where Jonathan Taylor's going to come back. They're going to run him into the ground because they're going to want to protect Anthony Richardson as much as they can. So I think they're going to run him into the ground, which is going to be great for fantasy. And then he's going to be somewhere else next year. That's what I really think. Yeah,
I agree. There's no team that's willing to give up a first round pick and pay him $18 million a year. That's not going to happen. So a favorite thing of mine,
lay it on me,
is that Calvin Ridley is freaking legit.
Yeah.
And he's back and he's going to be great. And I'm so excited to see Trevor Lawrence with an elite wide receiver like Calvin Ridley. And it's just going to be so fun. And it's awesome for fantasy football. And it's awesome just for the NFL itself.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great one. I loved the trade that they made to get him. Obviously, like there was some weak, sorry, I just got really distracted. I have like my my notifications on text pop up, and like my league chat is blowing up about something right now. We have some guys and it's because this is what my home league does. My home league is amazing. 10 teams. It's the same 10 guys that we've had since back in college. So this is I think it was our first year out of college we started this. Or were we still in? I don't remember. This is our last year and our first year out. But we're going into year 11 now for this league. So it's been around a while. But we still have guys that do stupid things and drop players that they shouldn't drop.
Oh my goodness.
It happens all, like I got Treylon Burks off waivers last year. Yeah, exactly. Because he was hurt and wasn't playing well, so somebody just dropped him. And I think that's
for Kyle Phillips.
Yeah, somebody, I think, actually, you know what? While we're talking about it,
Yep.
You give me your other last thing that was one of your favorite.
Yep.
I'm gonna look at what they're saying because I'm gonna talk about it on the air because it'll probably be thoroughly entertaining. So give me your last favorite.
So Chris Olave should be up there in that Garrett Wilson tier, and I think he showed it once again on the Saints. Another 100-yard game, but I think by the end of this year, we're going to be talking about him as potentially even like wide receiver 7, wide receiver 6 for Dynasty. I love his playing style and just watching him on the Saints. I'm looking forward to. I think every quarterback that comes from a different team, pretty much every week one they start slow, and everyone kind of overreacts. I mean, Tom Brady started super slow. On the Bucks, Aaron Rodgers started super slow. We're going to be seeing him next year, maybe. But Stafford started slow. If Derek Carr is even able to take another step in this offense, Chris Olave is going to be super good and very consistent.
Yeah, no, I like that call. I like Chris Olave a lot. He's such a talented player. And this is going to sound like I'm a Buckeye homer, which in some senses I am. I love Ohio State. I think they do a great job. But how they develop wide receivers is just incredible. Like, They are truly a wide receiver factory. Brian Hartline has those guys playing at such a high freaking level because they recruit well. Like, some of these guys were very well thought of recruits. But like a guy like Chris Olave, I think he was like a high 3-star or a low 4-star. Like, he was not a top tier recruit, and he developed him into something. Even Marvin Harrison Jr., a guy that's going to be the top wide receiver taken next year, no doubt. He wasn't even a 5-star. He was a 4-star recruit. Now he was a high 4-star, but he was not a 5-star recruit. So I think that's the thing too. Like, yes, they recruit very well. Emeka Ibuka was the number 1 receiver in his class. Garrett Wilson was the number 1 receiver in his class. Like, so they get the top guys as well. But even if they're not one of the top guys, they are still turning these guys into top tier talents. So it is really impressive what they do. And Chris Olave is another one of them. So what just happened in my league? Is this one is maybe not quite egregious. And you have to remember, it's a 10-team league, not like crazy deep benches. We have, let's see, how many bench spots do we have? So you start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You only start 8. And then bench wise, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 18 spots overall. So it's not crazy deep.
Any IR?
We do have IR. So you can have up to 2 guys on IR. And then we do have 3 taxi spots.
Okay.
So, but we have an interesting rule where you can like poach players off people's taxi squads. So that way.
I always wanted to play in one of those leagues. That's awesome.
I like it personally. I think it's more fun because I don't think you should be able to stash like really good players on the taxi squad because NFL teams don't put their really good players on taxi squads. So I kind of like having that opportunity. So it basically, if you have them on your taxi squad, then you put in the group chat, there's a 24-hour notice that you give the league, and you say, I'm putting a claim on this guy, and that person has 24 hours to either move them up to their active squad or they have to give you a second-round pick.
Oh, man. That's so cool.
Or you give a second-round pick for that player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so basically you make a trade for a second-round pick of that player.
Okay.
So,
but what was the drop?
Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams got dropped. Yeah.
With an IR spot.
What?
With an IR spot, too.
Right. Well, I don't know if he can because he's suspended.
Oh, that's right. It's not injury.
He can't in our league. But yeah. So that's what my league does. Man. They do silly things like that, which is fun. All right, Peter, any last things? Because I just realized the time, like our segment's already done. We always have so much fun talking,
Oh man.
hanging out. It goes so fast. But anything else that you want to get off your chest? And while Peter shares anything that's on his mind, on his heart, just like JJ did, the next segment, I always get to trade questions, draft questions, start sits, all of that kind of stuff. So feel free to put that in the chat. I will get to that in the next segment. But Peter, anything else you want to share with the good folks out there?
Speed run really fast. Packers looked awesome. I'm super excited for the Packers. Most underrated division winner betting odds this offseason, I think. Sam Howell, very impressed with him. Stats wise, wasn't great, but showed that he could run that offense well. And when things aren't going well, I'm actually
What's the Cardinals though?
It was, but they were also headhunting. Did you see those hits on him?
I did.
It was insane. There was a D lineman who literally wrapped. So they were both on the ground. He wrapped his legs around Sam Howell's neck and slammed his head into the ground. Like stuff like that. Like
send me that clip. I did not see that.
It's insane. Like hits like that a lot of quarterbacks win, so he showed that he could operate under distress. Dotson looked good. And then last bummer is the Bears look bad. Their offense, no one knows what's happening.
Yeah, it wasn't a great week one performance for the old Bears.
Nope. But that was the same thing last year, right? It took him a couple of weeks, and then Justin Fields just started running with the ball. So it's probably going to be the same thing with that. But other than that, just find me on Twitter at Pete Bartausky and on just the Dynasty Nerds Twitter. That's where I usually post stuff. That's usually like Garrett though talking, so it's not me. But anyway, thank you so much for having me on, Garrett. This was a blast.
Absolutely, always a joy, man. Always a joy.
Yep. See ya.
See you, buddy. All right, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to get to all of your trade questions, advice questions, start sits, anything like that. We'll get to that in a moment. Back here on the Better Sports Network.
Like Devon Levi started off in the friend zone and now like he could possibly be wife material. So it is exceptionally hard to trust a rookie goalie in the NHL. The kid is what? He's 21. Like, okay. And he is going to the Buffalo Sabres. But we've all agreed that the Buffalo Sabres are at least a somewhat better hockey team on paper. Again, it's hard to trust a rookie goalie. We've seen future Hall of Fame goalies like, Fleury in his first year struggle, right? Garret Price in his first year struggle. It is tough for goalies to come in and have success. That being said, nobody outside of maybe a Buffalo sports fan can tell me who the two goalies on their roster are, because I didn't know until this morning, until I was reminded that it was Eric Comrie and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And I was like, okay, well, he has the crease to himself. So all he can do is lose it. That's all he can do. Buffalo is going to be a fun team to watch, which means maybe Devon Levi ends up in what I call the Martin Jones syndrome, which is a goals against average is pretty up there. Save percentage is not very good, but he's going to finish with 35 wins because he's just going to play a lot. And it's going to be that back and forth hockey. The Atlantic Division is not very good, right? There are some teams that are going to regress. So there's opportunities here for Buffalo to do well. And I think his over-under on wins is set at 24.5. So again, there's a lot of things that I may not trust about him, but as a 13th goalie off the board, and I think that is a reach at 13. I think a lot of people have him farther back than that. So he may be 13 on NHL.com's list, but you may end up and show up in your Yahoo or your ESPN draft and they haven't ranked probably outside of the top 20. So I would have no issue as a second goalie going with Levi, because like who's taking his spot? Nobody. And volume at one point, if you're in a league that doesn't penalize you for losses, if you're in a league that rewards saves and save bonuses like, for daily, DraftKings does, he has all that working for him. So if it doesn't work out, all right, fine. Then you can go and pick up whoever is there. But it is his net to lose. I understand the risk. I will definitely take, because that's how you win championships, right? You got to take risks to win them. If you're safe, you're going to finish, eliminated in the first round and you had a good time. Or you can try to win the championship on draft day.
Welcome back in. Dynasty Nerds, Better Sports Network. Thank you once again to my good friend Pete for hopping in, joining us, talking favorite things from week one, and then some of the things that were a bummer, some of the things that let us down a little bit. But you know who won't let you down? Fantasy Alarm. That's right. Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. Yes, we are past the point where you're drafting and you've got the cheat sheets and all that kind of stuff, but they've got plenty of other things on the website to help you win your leagues. Start your 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. Well, I guess you don't need /draft anymore. Just go to fantasyalarm.com. Fantasyalarm.com. You'll get a 7-day free trial of their All-Pro subscription. All right, let's get into some of these trades, some of these questions, all of this kind of stuff. And let me make sure real quick that I have my notes pulled up, because I like to make sure that I can reference my personal rankings and what I'm doing that week. So I want to make sure that I have all of my stuff ready to go. Okay. Start 2 wide receivers. We've got Garrett Wilson, Amari Cooper, or Michael Pittman Jr. That's from JJ. All right. So obviously we've touched on Garrett Wilson. It's a tougher start where he looked like he was going to be a set it and forget it each and every week. But now with the loss of Aaron Rodgers, he's not quite as set it and forget it as he once was. I still have him as a wide receiver 2, a higher end wide receiver 2, but it is a little bit more difficult to start. So right now I have him at wide receiver 14 on the week against Dallas. And then we have Amari Cooper I have as wide receiver 17 on Monday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then as far as Michael Pittman Jr. goes, I love Michael Pittman Jr. I really do. I think he's a fantastic player overall, but he is the lowest of the group for me. So I am sitting him at this moment, even though they are playing Houston. Houston actually played pretty well against Lamar Jackson last week. D'Amico Ryans had them playing pretty decent there. Their secondary isn't bad overall. So I need to see it another week or two out of Michael Pittman Jr. before I can start him over guys that we expect to be really solid wide receiver 2s. So I think Michael Pittman Jr. is the one that I'm going to be sitting for now, and I'm going to be starting Amari Cooper and Garrett Wilson. All right. Actually, Heavy T has a question here. He said, so I have a question. I have to decide between Wilson, Cooper, and A.J. Brown. Who do I go with? Slightly leaning Cooper since the Steelers look so bad. Yeah, and that's what I would do too. I think A.J. Brown's a lock. A.J. Brown is a lock. Cooper and Wilson are tough. I have them, like I said, I originally ranked them 14th and 17th on the week, and I do have Garrett Wilson higher. So I would lean slightly Garrett Wilson, but I think Cooper's the safer play. So this is how I would look at it. If you are projected to win, I like to play it a little bit safer. I think Cooper, we know what we're going to get. He might not have the ceiling that Garrett Wilson has, but we know what we're going to get. Garrett Wilson, I have no idea how that's going to work in Dallas. Dallas has a really good defense overall as far as getting to the quarterback, but their secondary has let up some big plays at times. We saw that quite a bit last year. So I think it depends on what you need, but I think I'm with you. I think, and even as I'm talking about it, I think I'm talking myself into Garrett Cooper more. And sometimes I have to go through this and do this. So I'm going to move Amari Cooper a spot above Garrett Wilson because I think I'm with you. I think I would go Amari Cooper as well. So good call there. All right. The League FFB says, any advice for fantasy football content creators during this time of year? Hard to not be results driven in such a competitive industry. Yeah, this is a very competitive industry. Fantasy football is it's something that over the past decade has absolutely blown up. We've seen Dynasty really blow up as well. It used to be, the small niche market, and now it's pretty mainstream now. So it can be difficult, especially as you're first getting into it. You're wanting a lot of views, you're wanting a lot of downloads, you're wanting a lot of likes, and all that kind of stuff. Here's what I'll say. We see people in this industry come out of nowhere and blow up all the time. But you have to find your lane. If you're trying to do the same start sit stuff that everyone else does, if you're trying to do the same, like, here's 5, buys for this week. Like, and I'm not saying you can't have that as part of your content, but find something that's unique to you, something that you offer that other people aren't already offering. That's how you're going to start getting ahead a little bit. That's how you're going to start getting noticed, because you're talking about things that people just don't really talk about. Devi. That's why some of the Devi space, some of those guys have grown. Yeah, it's a smaller market, but some of those guys have gotten really big because they do a good job. Maybe target a platform that is underused and underdeveloped. TikTok. Like, that's something that I've really been strongly considering. Like, do I need to do more on TikTok? Because I haven't really, but it's a good space where you could grow real quickly. So looking at things outside the box and then collaborating with other people that are already in the space. When you are constantly talking, interacting with people that are looked at as leaders, pioneers in the space, and you're talking with them, hanging out with them, doing stuff with them, collaborating with them, that instantly gives you credibility. So I would absolutely do that as well. Heavy T said, I've been thinking about doing my own TikTok. I would suggest that allows for unlimited creativity. So hopefully that's helpful, man. All right. Hi, Dan45 says, lost Dobbins. Do I make a move for a running back with having Hall and Najee? I also picked up Justice Hill on waivers. Already had Kyron Williams and Jalen Warren on my bench. With having Kyron Williams and picking up Justice Hill, I don't think you have to pick somebody up and make a deal. Would it be helpful? Sure. You can never have too many running backs. Never. With all the injuries that happen traditionally at the running back position, you can never have too many running backs. But I'm not going to overpay. And that's the hard part, is people are looking for Dobbins owners to be desperate, overpay for somebody. If you can get a fair deal, totally for it. But I don't think you're at that point where you're in desperation mode, because you have 2 solid starters and you have guys that can back them up that are pretty good as well. So I would put feelers out there, see who's available, see who guys are willing to trade, and then make a deal at that point. All right. Red Sox fan says, who's your favorite player to target with a single 24 first round pick? Early, mid, late? That is a great question. So with an early pick, I'm going to assume this is super flex leagues. It's going to have to be a dang good player, because I'm not giving up an early 24 first for just anybody, because the top 3 guys in this class look incredible right now. Caleb Williams looks like the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. Drake May looks like he was built in a lab. He's got all the physical tools and traits that you would want. He's been really successful at North Carolina. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. is legitimately the best wide receiver I've ever scouted. So all of those guys right now in drafts, because I did some offseason drafts where you could take the 24 picks in the draft as well. So you weren't just drafting 23 picks along with players. You were also drafting 24 picks. The top 3 picks of the 24 class all went in the second round. All of them, all 3 of them, the 101, the 102, and the 103. So that's the range that you need to be looking at. If you're looking at somebody like that, we're talking Garrett Wilson level prospects, Amon-Ra St. Brown type guys. At quarterback, you're looking at, honestly, the running backs. I don't know that I would trade any of them straight up unless it was Bijan Robinson. That's the only one I would trade for an early first, and it probably won't get done. Quarterback wise, you're not getting the top tier guys, but Anthony Richardson, Tua, those guys I would potentially take a look at with a first round pick, an early first. And then tight end, there's really nobody right now. So it would have to be one of those top tier wide receivers or kind of that second-ish, third-ish tier of quarterback for me to move on from one of those picks, because that's how much that class is being looked at and valued right now. Mid first, I'm going to see if I can get Jonathan Taylor. That might be a little bit pie in the sky, but I would like to trade to try to get Jonathan Taylor with a mid first. I don't think that's going to get it done. I don't. But you might be able to get Javonte, and that's another guy that I would be willing to go out there and get. Like some of those younger running backs that still have quite a bit of upside. Those are the guys that I'm looking at targeting there. Wide receiver wise, you're probably not going to be able to get like the Olave, the Waddle. Like you're not going to get that range probably. But you might be able to get into the next tier. Like, could you get Brandon Ayuk? Could you get T. Higgins? Those types of guys. Like, those would be the guys that I would be targeting with a mid. And then with a late, if I'm a contending team, I'm looking at some quarterbacks that might not be viewed as highly as others, but will it work to get one of those guys to kind of help boost my quarterback spot if I need help at quarterback? So I'm looking at like Jared Goff. Will it get done? Like, wouldn't for me, I would need more than a 24 first, but other people don't value the quarterback as highly. So a late 24 first might get you a guy like Jared Goff, a guy like Kirk Cousins to help you win a ship. So great question there. Charles says, just lost J.K. Dobbins, have Gibbs, and the only other startable guy is Justice Hill. Any guys you are targeting right now? So, Charles, I feel like I need a little bit more information in the sense of, if I don't think I'm a contending team, then I'm probably not looking to go out and get another running back. I'm going to let this year go as it will, and maybe, look to lean into that 24 class with as good as I thought, I think it's going to be. So I wouldn't do that. Now, if it's redraft, it's a different story, but I'm assuming it's Dynasty. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I'm looking at it. So I probably wouldn't unless I'm a contender. If I'm a contender, then I'm looking at the probably the older running backs that can get me by. Could I get Aaron Jones? Can I get Joe Mixon? Can I get Madison? Guys like that range are the guys that I'm probably targeting. All right. Red Sox fan says, just lost Dobbins, managed to trade Godwin and Gainwell for Josh Jacobs and Josh Palmer. I think that's a good deal. I'm not completely sold on Gainwell. I like him, but not more than like an average replacement level running back. So I would have no problem with that. Would you say that Josh Kelly is – oh, sorry, I missed one. How are you feeling about Fields currently? Look, Fields and Heavy T is right. Gainwell is out tomorrow. Fields, would I have liked to have seen a better week one? Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's the one thing with the whole Fields Moore thing that I'm not following the narrative on. Jair Alexander is one of the best cover corners in the NFL. He was banged up last year, so people have kind of forgotten about him a little bit, but he's a guy that put Calvin Ridley on complete locks, like 0 for 0, not a single catch the entire game. He's done that to other high profile wide receivers where he'll just lock them down in under 40 yards, under 4 catches. Like, he's known to do that. So the fact that DJ Moore did not have a huge week doesn't surprise me a ton. And the fact that Justin Fields didn't have a huge week, partly because his number one receiver was locked down. Doesn't surprise me much. Do I want to see more out of him? Absolutely. I need to see more out of him as a passer, but I'm not allowing that to change my thought process on him. If I'm still seeing this 3 weeks from now, then yes, I'm very concerned, but I'm not concerned yet at this point. Charles said, to add to my previous question, I have a pretty primed team to go on a run, so I want to make a move. I don't know if this is too soon. So thank you. Yeah. So if that's the case, yeah, the guys that I kind of mentioned, Madison, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, maybe even Najee, like those are the guys that I'm kind of looking to go out and target. All right. Let's take a quick break. Evan, I see your question. We'll get to it in a moment. We'll take a quick break. When I come back, I'll finish the last little bit of the questions, and then we'll get to my man, Dennis Bennett. So we'll be back here in just a moment on the Better Sports Network.
Oh, boy, we got a big one. We got a big card here. We got.
Baby, let's go.
We got a super rookie.
Ooh.
Do you guys want to guess who the big card super rookie is? Because
I'm going to guess
exciting.
somebody from the Dallas Cowboys, but I don't recall who were rookies in those particular years. So I'm going to guess Michael Irvin.
Adam?
Jared kind of convinced me to go Troy Aikman there.
I'm going to read the description. In this player's NFL debut, September 10th, 1989, he produced an electrifying 68-yard punt return for a touchdown.
Sanders.
He became the first athlete in the 20th century to hit a home run, September 5th, 1989, for the Yankees at Seattle, and score a touchdown in the same week.
That needs a sleeve. That one needs a sleeve.
Top
100%.
super rookie, neon, prime time, Deion Sanders.
I wasn't that far off. He played for the Cowboys.
I was going to say Deion, and then when you said the early 90s Cowboys, I'm like, Aikman would be a good guess. So I go with your gut is the lesson there.
And there it is, the white and red Falcon jerseys that you said Deion came in with before they changed to black.
That was because the starting lineup for Deion his rookie year has got the red helmet with the white jersey.
Now look at that mean, are you kidding me with that hair?
I mean, you got to have a headband with those curls. You got to.
That is sick. And this is a favorite card. Do we have any value on this card? We have to, right?
Let me see.
Give me a value here.
Let's see here on eBay. PSA 10 gem mint Deion Sanders, $149.99. And then a 9.5 is $6. So that guy might be a little bit then there's a much more reasonably listed one at $31 for a PSA 10. So it's got some value to it. Yeah, you might want to protect that one.
It's in excellent condition. I guess we have to worry about, is it centered?
Yes, that would be the next thing.
All right, well, we'll go through the process there. Maybe I'll just frame that one as a great moment in this show's history.
What's up? We're back. Heavy T hates Justin Fields. He says the Bears play the Bucs this week, so if Fields doesn't do well, he's a bust. That's right. One more game. That's all he gets. And then he sucks. You guys are such Field haters. All right. Evan says, contender, I lost Dobbins and Kupp. I have Lamar, Love, and Purdy at quarterback. Hawkinson, Laporta, and Higbee at tight end. I have somebody that wants Laporta, Love, and my 24-second. He's offering Miles. So I'm guessing that's Miles Sanders. Is this a 1 QB league? Oh, you said non-super flex. Okay. Laporta, Love, and my second. And he's offering Miles. No, I wouldn't. Look, I get the potential upside of Miles Sanders, but the usage wasn't what we were hoping for. Chuba Hubbard was actually very involved this past year or this past game. So at this point, I feel like you're giving up too much. I understand in a 1 QB league, you don't need 3 quarterbacks. It's easy to give up one, but Love looked really good. I think he's going to probably increase in value. Laporta looked really good. And 24-second is nothing to season at. Basically, in a 1 QB league, you're looking at 3 24 seconds for Miles Sanders, which right now he's probably worth a early second, but just one of them, one early second, maybe a late first. He wouldn't be worth a late first to me. So probably an early second, maybe 2 at the most. But so I think you're underselling those assets a little bit. And I would want somebody a little bit better, even if it's, an older running back I'm fine with, but it's got to be somebody, like I mentioned, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, somebody like that is much more capable of actually putting me over the top than Miles Sanders, who, I was hoping he was going to get a lot more work than he did, but that offensive line, that isn't that good. The whole offense really isn't that good. So I would not be doing that deal. All right, Red Sox fan for life says, what's your value on Mayfield and Ritter? I'd like to move one of them in Superflex. I'm a low-end contender and would be willing to take picks or wide receiver help. What should I target? Looking at Ritter, the whole Atlanta, and actually, you know what? Heavy T, if you're available, hop on right now, because I know you're a Falcons fan. I want to talk this through with you because I want to see if your assumptions as a fan are similar to my assumptions as somebody from the outside looking in. But the way I see them right now, he said, give me a second. So he's going to hop on in a moment. But the way that I currently see the Falcons is this is a team built to win everywhere. Like, it's a good defense because they added a lot of pieces on defense. It's a good offensive line. They've got weapons, but they're missing the most important piece, which is Desmond Ritter. So when you're missing the quarterback piece, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the team is. That's the anchor that's going to still pull you down. But I think that they're going to win enough games this year to where Arthur Smith is probably not going anywhere, and Desmond Ritter's probably not going anywhere. Like, there's a real chance that both of those guys are the head coach and the starting quarterback next year. So while Ritter might not give you great numbers, I think he's decently insulated if they win 8+ games, which I think is realistic in this division. Heavy T, what do you think?
I think that's about right, because even if Ritter sucks, they still have Taylor Heineke in the back, so they're probably still going to win playoff games. But as far as that question, what's your value on Mayfield and Ritter? You want to move one of them in Superflex. I would honestly move Ritter just because we don't know what his upside is yet. With Baker, we kind of have that idea, and I don't feel like you can get a whole lot for him. I feel like with Ritter, you might be able to get just a bit more just because we don't know what the upside is. And I think right now would be the best time to sell because, not gonna lie, I was not impressed with that week 1 performance. It was pretty bad. I mean, I think at one point he was 5 for 6 for 1 yard and a touchdown or something like that. Like, it just was not a great overall performance. They play Green Bay this week. And Jair is going to lock down Drake London. So is the passing game really going to be there this week? I just don't know exactly yet. I don't know if he can throw the deep ball. I would move on from Ritter, honestly.
Yeah, and that would be the one that I would move. What can you get in return? Right now, you're probably looking at a high second in Superflex leagues. Maybe at best you'd get 2 seconds for either one of those guys. They're probably in the same boat because I think you're right. I think the value on Ritter is we don't know what he could be. So I think it's the what's in the box kind of thing. Like, it could be, but it's probably not. Whereas Mayfield, it's a little bit more. We know that the ceiling isn't super high. But I think if it's a contender trying to acquire Baker Mayfield, they probably feel that he's a little bit safer because they believe that he's going to at least produce 180 yards and a touchdown or two every week, where you don't know for sure that you're getting that out of Ritter in the passing game. So yeah, I would say, a second at best, maybe you can get 2, but you're probably only getting a single second for either one of those guys.
I mean, you could get lucky and swindle the dude for a super late first, like maybe the last pick in the first round for Ritter. But I mean, if the guy's that good of a contender, like, it might be worth a shot. You never know. So I will say this, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
I'm starting to hype myself up. Like, let's say hypothetically Ritter doesn't pan out. Okay. It's a losing season. Falcons don't make the playoffs. Do you think the Falcons could have a real shot at Shedeur Sanders?
He's an interesting one, and this is looking like a pretty good quarterback class. If they don't make the playoffs, because right now he's looking like he is a first-round pick. We'll see how he does the next few weeks, but I mean, he could move himself into top 10 territory, and at that point, that's what you're hoping for if you're at Atlanta. For their sake, I kind of hope they don't make the playoffs this year, because I think it would be better for the team long term to get either a higher end quarterback or trade that first round pick for somebody that is in the league, that's established, that's ready to win now, something like that. So I know you don't like Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray would be fascinating in this offense.
I think the only reason I bring up Shedeur is, number one, he's good. Like, he's really good.
Yes.
And number two, his dad was drafted by Atlanta, so it's kind of makes sense. Bring him home. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I started hyping myself about that last night, and I'm just thinking maybe I'm getting a little too ahead of myself, because that's the other thing too. They have to be bad, and this division is bad. Like, there's a very good chance that someone with a losing record could end up winning this division.
Yep.
So with our luck, we would end up with a losing record, but we won, so we don't have a pick until like 18 or something like that. So that could totally happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm projecting, is like I think the Falcons will win the division at 8-9. Like,
that's so sad to hear, but that's okay.
And like that's really what I think. Like, I think they're going to win the division. I think they're the best team, but I think without a true serviceable quarterback, like, it's tough to win more than half your games. It really is.
Yeah, you're right, and I'm actually very interested to see what will happen with Heineke, because I was talking to my brother about this last night. I could very much see the Jets calling Atlanta and saying, "What do you want for Heineke?" Because Zach Wilson isn't it, or just to get him as a backup. Because as far as I know right now, Zach Wilson is still the only quarterback on the roster, so they need somebody. And I think they could probably get Heineke for like a 4th or a 5th, so it wouldn't be too high costing. So I mean, that's something you could go for.
Yeah, absolutely. There's rumors about, Minshew. There's a few guys out there that they could potentially go get that would be serviceable quarterbacks. But the whole Atlanta situation is interesting, because I do think if you were to remove the quarterback situation, I honestly think you could make an argument for them being a top 8 team. Like, if quarterbacks weren't involved on any team, you remove Patrick Mahomes, you remove Josh Allen, you remove all of those guys from their teams, and you only have everybody else, like, their total roster, I think, is probably a top 8 team in the NFL right now. But the quarterback plays such an influential part of that it's 50% the roster, and then it's 50% who your quarterback is. And then that's what makes the difference, because now you have Ritter going up against Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs are now vastly superior because they have Patrick Mahomes. Even the Browns were I think the Browns were similar to the Falcons for a lot of years, where a lot of really good players all the way around, good secondary players like Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett coming off the edge, a top 10 offensive line, Nick Chubb in the backfield, like a really good team all the way around. But they didn't have a good quarterback, so it didn't matter. They would win 5 games. They would win 6 games because their division was really good, and they just didn't have a good quarterback. So that's where I think the Falcons are at the moment. A really good team, but man, if they would have been able to figure out a way to get Lamar Jackson, if they would have been able to figure out how to get Deshaun Watson, when he was, making his deal and whatnot, like, if they would have been able to get one of those guys, it would have been a very different story.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, but I also think about, well, if we do have Jackson, if we do have Watson, we don't have Bijan. He's either in
It's
Baltimore or
true.
in Cleveland. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely. Bijan wouldn't be there, which does change elements on that team for sure. But you never know. It's not too late. There's a guy that he's not as sexy as Lamar and Deshaun, but that could be available next year. And he's a good Christian man, Christian Kirk Cousins.
You know what? That would be very, very interesting because Kirk Cousins can sling it. He's like Tannehill, but he can throw a little bit better.
Right.
So that's a really interesting move right there. And now I'm going to sleep on that as well. So I mean, this is what happens when you play armchair GM at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you just you can't sleep, but your thoughts are racing. Like, what if I draft this? I'm literally the meme where the girl on the side says, like, I bet he's thinking about other girls, and it's just me like, oh yeah, I wonder if the Falcons could get Kirk Cousins for this amount of money. It's that's pretty much my life. But no, that's a very interesting situation. All this is assuming, like I said, that Ridder doesn't pan out, but we'll see. Like I said, he has Green Bay this weekend, and then I don't remember. Oh, they have the Lions after. So you have two really, really good teams. And it's so unfortunate because for once, I know they played Bryce Young, I know they played Carolina, but the defense actually looks really good.
It does.
Like Jesse Bates looked really good. And now I'm just like, well, that's going to be the most Falcons thing ever. If the one time we have a great defense, the offense is absolutely awful. So we'll see, man. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll bring Dennis back on after break. So thank you so much for Heavy T coming on, being our eyes on the ground, our feet on the ground. What would that be? I don't know. Our Falcons expert. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that, man. We'll be back in a moment with our own Dennis Bennett.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Your heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes,
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Hey! Come on! Let's go! Come on, dig it! Dig it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire, over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush. You were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're gonna win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no!
on the loose. Watch
Moose,
out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations. And no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
All right, no music. Oh, there it is. There we go. We're back. Sports Network. The great Dennis Bennett at Culture Coach on the Twitter machine or the X machine or whatever machine it is. Dennis Bennett, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Hey, I added an impression to my repertoire of things. Let me do it for you real quick. It's my impression of Tyler. Did someone say Dawkins?
You see, he cut you out there for a second. He didn't want to see it.
No, I'm doing great. I love, Thursdays, getting the chance to go watch my kid play baseball, or excuse me, Wednesdays, still adjusting. Go play baseball, then I come back and I sit and listen to the show, get ready, put some notes together, try to sound, like a, 3/4 wit instead of a half wit.
There you go. Working your way up.
Peter's such a joy to listen to. You're always having so much fun. I love listening to you talk trades. Having a great day.
Well, good, man. I'm glad to hear it. So before we get into patience or panic, which we're going to get into, it's going to be players that struggled in week one. Where are we at on them? How do we feel about them? Before we get into that, Dennis, week one was wild, but what were just some of your overall takeaways from the week? Whether it's positive, negative, whatever, what were just some of your general overall takeaways from week one?
Coming out of the off season and into camp, I was starting to drink heavily in the Kenny Pickett bottle there. I thought he was going to come out looking good. I liked the receiving core he had. But, man, that San Francisco defense put them in their place. I just I'm not – now I'm wondering, is it – was it just the San Francisco defense and because it's the first game of the season? The same thing with Daniel Jones in New York, the way he came out and just stomped all over them. I have a lot of Daniel Jones across several dynasty leagues and best ball leagues. And I got to be honest, I'm a little concerned because, it's the second year with the same coordinator, same head coach. Jones isn't supposed to lay that kind of egg. I guess Pickett, we can see it because Matt Canada isn't great, but I think we expected a lot more from Daniel Jones. So that, I like that the Lions came out and got a win in Kansas City.
Yeah, they did.
To be fair, I had a great week. Starting with Thursday, the Lions won. Friday night, I went to the Hilliard-Bradley game with my son. And Bradley just whooped the heck out of Marysville. Saturday, the Buckeyes won. Sunday, the Browns won. Honestly, it was my kids' baseball team won Saturday morning. It was great all the way around.
You should have parlayed all those, Dennis.
Then I went 12-11 in my fantasy league. So,
hey, still above average. But you should have parlayed all those wins. The Lions win, the high school football game win, your kids win, the Browns win. Like, where are the odds for all those? Because you could have made a lot of money this weekend.
I'm an anti-parlay guy.
Are you?
Parlays are lottery tickets, and I know you got to play to win. I get it, but the odds are just so long.
I get it. It's tough. I love a good parlay though.
But are there any good parlays? That's the question.
Hey, I've hit a couple nice ones. Won some decent do-re-mi on the Colorado game. I did a nice parlay week one before before they blew up and everybody realized, oh shoot, these guys are actually really good.
Yeah.
I made
They're
some
really
money
good.
off that. Made some money off the Super Bowl. So I've done all right. But let's get into the patience or panic. Let's start with these Atlanta Falcons that we just touched on. Maybe Tyler should have to answer where we should be with this, but Drake London had just a single target on Sunday, did not do anything with that target, despite playing almost every snap and running almost every route. He played 46 of the 51 snaps, 20 of the 22. So where are you at on Drake London? Are you practicing patience? Are you worried? Or are you like, yeah, I'm panicked?
I am fully patient. I'm
fully patient. Okay.
I love the talent. I think the talent is there. And looking at it in a dynasty lens, if you can go out and get him at a discount, I think you do. If you're rebuilding and somebody's contending and they're panicking, see what you can get him for. But the talent's there, and I know that Ritter only threw for 115 yards or something like that, but he had the 5th lowest off-target percentage. Yes, he had a low ADOT. Some of this is Arthur Smith getting comfortable in game situations that Desmond Ritter is his quarterback. Yes, they're going to run the ball a lot. We expected that with Bijan and Tyler Algier. They only have 2 real targets, and that's Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and I guess Bijan out of the backfield. So Absolutely. 2.5. But I think London is going to be just fine. You just got to be patient. Let that offense settle. Listening to you and Tyler talk, they are a good team. Mm-hmm. Are they going to go out and is London going to put up a 200-yard game? Probably not. He's probably not going to have a 15-catch game. But once they get Ritter into the 25, 28, 30 passes per game, those numbers are going to come up. And like you said, he's running all the routes. He's out there. He's on the field. I think some of it was Ritter just, taking live fire and having to get used to it. So I'm being very patient with Drake London. I love that, he outsnapped Mac Hollins 90% to 67%. That's a big gap.
Yeah. I'm a little more on the panic side. I got to be honest, Dennis. I'm worried about Drake London, and it's not because I think he's a bad player.
You have him in the Nerd Calculator League?
What's that?
I said you have him in the Nerd Calculator League.
To be fair, I did not have him in many leagues at all. I'll check because I might have him in 1 or 2 places, but of my 19 leagues, I think I might only have a share or 2. But I don't have him many places, but I'm a little bit worried, and I appreciate what you said. Because I am a talent over situation guy. But we do have certain situations that's just, it gets so rough that short term anyway, there's just not much you can do. And that was kind of why I said what I said before Tyler came on. I'm worried that, because one of the biggest things is if Drake's not, or if Desmond Ritter's not good, they'll just get a new quarterback next year. I'm not 100% convinced that's true. If he's not that good, but they're still winning games, at the end of the day, Arthur Smith loves to run the football. He wants a guy that can run his offense and run it smoothly. If Desmond Ritter's doing those things and they're getting W's, they might stick with them. They might not be in a spot to draft a quarterback. There might not be one available. So it might be Desmond Ridder for this year and next year. And that's the hard part is when you're looking at a potential the next 2 years of a ceiling for Drake of, what's a realistic ceiling, Dennis? 850, 900 yards?
Yeah, probably 900 yards and 8 touchdowns, maybe. Because that's a low ceiling. That it is, but that's short term. And from a real football perspective, Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer won Super Bowls. Now, I'm not saying the Falcons defense is at that level yet.
Sure.
But I think Ritter comes around as he settles in and gets to that high 20s, low 30s pass attempts per game. And Drake London's going to benefit from that. Yes, they're going to run the ball when they get up. That's what Tyler Algier is for. But, I mean, if I can get him for a late first in Dynasty, I think that's, especially if I'm rebuilding and I'm selling somebody else's first, that's a little discount. Because I don't think you're going to get him for 2 seconds. I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe
I wouldn't give
somebody
him up for 2
panics,
seconds.
I think you're going to struggle to get him for a projected late first, even because people are going to be patient. They're going to talk panic, but act patient.
I get you. All right, let's move on to the next guy here. Rachaad White, 17 attempts, but only 39 yards on those 17 attempts. Only 2 targets, 2 receptions for 10 yards. So a lot of opportunity, but he did not do much with that opportunity. And it was even against Minnesota, who's not supposed to be a great defense this year. So where are we at on Rachaad White?
I would say I'm panicking, but I characterize it as that because I've kind of been out on White to begin with. He was not very efficient last year. Yes, he caught 50 passes, but that was a Tom Brady-led offense who threw. I mean, Lenny caught 70 passes. That's 120 passes to the running backs. That's not going to happen with Baker Mayfield. The offensive line is still terrible. Baker panics. Tom didn't. Baker still tries to make plays down the field. I love that Mike Evans was doing great, but right now the only saving grace is that Rachaad White dominated the touches. He dominated the snaps. He was 79% of the snaps versus Tucker's 15% and Chase Edmonds' 12%. So the downside, he had a 52.9% stuff rate, which is pretty high. I mean, more than half of his rushes were stuffed, and only 1 missed tackle forced. 50th in yards before contact. So that shows just how bad that line was. It's going to be a tough year for him, mostly because it's going to be a tough year for that offense in general. I'm not a Baker believer. I'm not a believer in Kyle Trask. I feel bad for Mike Evans, but it looks like they're going to do what they can to get him his 10th straight 1,000-yard season. So when it comes to Rachaad White, I'm hitting the panic button. I want out.
Yeah, I'm panicked as well. And I'm with you. I wasn't in to begin with. I don't think I have any shares across my 19 leagues. So I wasn't in. So it's tough to be out when you were never in. But yeah, my worry is about as high as it can be. You're right. The only thing that helps is there's really nothing else there. Maybe they let Sean Tucker loose at some point, but it does just seem like a team that's heading in the wrong direction. Not a lot of great players there at the moment, and we're going to be getting a new head coach. They're going to be resetting basically everything next year. It's going to probably look like a very different team. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Let's go to a guy that, maybe wasn't as highly thought of, to a guy that's considered one of the better tight ends in football, Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert, tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. He had a really solid year last year, but he only had 1 target in this game, and he had 0 yards on that 1 target. So how worried are we about Dallas Goedert? Are we practicing some patience here, or are we panicked?
Much like Rachaad White, Goddard dominated the snaps and the touches. Well, not the touches, I guess. He only had 1 target. Right. But he dominated the snaps and the routes for Philadelphia from the tight end position. 92% of the snaps to Jack Stoll's 20%, Grant Calcaterra's 4%. It's safe to say they are out of the 2 tight end business in Philadelphia. That is gone. That's a thing of the past. When Zach Ertz left, so did that offense. But he completely dominated the routes. 86.8% route participation versus 10.5% for stall, and ADOT of 13 yards, third highest for the tight end position with tight ends of a minimum of 20 routes run. So the underlying numbers are there. It was just a situation where the offense, they had a couple big plays on defense, and then the offense stumbled a little bit.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people that thought maybe Jalen Hurts was fool's gold the past year or so. I don't think that that's accurate. I think he's still going to be great. They have two really good wide receivers, but the offense is transitioning from that 2 tight end set to the 4 running back set. I mean, they listed all 4 running backs as starters. And I got to say, even if Kenneth Gainwell was not out, it would not have surprised me for any one of the other 3 to get 16 carries tomorrow night.
Sure.
I think they're just drawing straws, and short straw is the inactive guy.
It does kind of feel like that at the moment. It is a little bit of a mess. Yeah, I'm not worried at all about Dallas Goedert. I think he's one of the best receiving tight ends in football. And we know that there are going to be some weeks where it's going to be a little bit lower volume for him because of A.J. Brown and because of Devontae Smith. So we know that's going to happen, and especially in a weird game like this where we're getting turnovers turned into scores. So you're losing offensive possessions when that happens. And just the whole game was a weird game. So I'm not overly concerned, but I am a little bit panicked about the next guy, Dameon Pierce. He had 11 attempts for 38 yards, only 3 targets, 2 receptions for 9 yards. But Devin Singletary, despite being uber inefficient, he also had 7 rushing attempts. We kind of thought that Dameon Pierce might be the guy that was looking like that in preseason. He was getting a lot of love, a lot of hype, and he hasn't looked great so far. But 1 week, it's a little early. How worried are you, Dennis?
So Dameon Pierce was getting a whopping 20 inches of ground gained before contact, 0.55 yards before contact. So that offensive line was not doing him any favors, and he's not an uber efficient back, but they really split the snaps up. Pierce playing 45, Mike Boone out of nowhere playing 31% of the snaps, and then Singletary with 21%. Boone operated as the receiving back. That's where he did his work, and you just didn't hear a whole lot about him in preseason. But, despite having the defense in the backfield, he had the 8th lowest stuffed run rate for running backs with only 36.4%. So he was getting hit, but he was making making chicken salad out of chicken shit's what he was doing. And I don't know that it's going to be how effective that's going to be long-term. I like Pierce I think it comes together. I was surprised that they let Stroud throw the ball 44 times. And I don't think that's the type of offense they want to run with that heavy pass run ratio. So I think it'll balance out a little more. The offensive line has to gel, as does everybody's. When you're not playing a lot in preseason, it takes 2-3 games into the year before things start to come together. I think he'll be fine. He does have, he's a decent running back, but there's probably a reason he didn't. What was his high in college? 626 yards, only 125 carries, something like that. He wasn't a workhorse in college, and the guys that were with him didn't do anything in the NFL yet either, unlike the Georgia backs or the Alabama backs. So. He's a hashtag 2 to 3 year window guy. We're in the 2nd year. I think if you have him in Dynasty, you're kind of holding on by a thread now, trying not to panic. But if this goes 4 or 5 games, I think a full-on panic is going to set in. If he starts to shake it off and be productive, I think you play the patience game and then maybe look for a deal depending on how your individual team is performing. It may be a great situation. If your team is middle of the road, maybe you can move him to a contender, get some value for him there.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about a lot of players that I don't have a lot of shares of, but let's get to one where I do have a lot of shares. And we had a really interesting discourse on this player on the old Twitter machine after the Thursday night game, and that's my guy Sky Moore. Sky Moore, a player that I've been high on. I've been high on this player, and week 1 wasn't it. It wasn't. We don't get them all right. Week 1 was not it. 3 targets, 0 receptions or yards on the game. Now, he did have a catch that got brought back due to a penalty. But, Dennis, where are you at? Panic or patience on Sky Moore? Because I'm torn. There's a part of me that is panicked. I think the part of me that's panicked is not necessarily the fact that he didn't have any receptions. It was more that he didn't have a lot of targets. I think that was the thing that worries me more. They weren't actively trying to get him the football, whereas it looked like they were trying to actively get Kadarius Toney the football, and he just flat out dropped it every time. Sky Moore, could he have made a couple plays? Yeah, but they were very inaccurate passes. They were not like, you should have caught that. I wouldn't consider any of his passes drops. Could he have maybe made a play on 1 or 2 of them? Sure, but I don't think he had drops like we saw out of Kadarius Toney. So in that sense, I'm not worried, but I am worried that he wasn't involved more in the game plan. So I'm somewhere between panic and patience on Sky Moore. Where are you at, Dennis?
I'm still firmly in the patience mode, but I can see where you're looking at the panic because of the 3 targets. Targets are earned, but and I agree with you, man. The targets he had weren't great. And, Kadarius Toney feels like a squeaky wheel gets the grease. He's Odell Beckham. He's Stephon Diggs. He's that moody, bitchy, give me the ball. I'm going to cause a scene. I think we're a lot closer to him ripping off his shirt and pads and flipping off the crowd walking out than we ever were with AB until it actually happened. He just, he struggled mightily last Thursday. Toney did. And I don't know why they didn't go back to Sky Moore more often. But, I tell my son a lot of times, the receiver's job is to make the quarterback look good. And Moore got his hands on the ball. And sometimes you just got to make those plays. That's what George Pickens does. Like you get the ball near him, he brings it in. That's what DeAndre Hopkins does. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be where I can touch it and it's mine. Sky Moore has to, level up that mentality. He led the wide receivers with 69% of the snaps. Now, they played a lot of wide receivers. They played Toney. They played MVS. They played Rashee Rice. So they played a lot. But he was second in routes run to MVS, second in air yards to Justin Watson. And that's because they just tried Justin Watson on a couple bombs. And sure, he added up the air yards on fairly uncatchable balls. So I'm expressing patience on Toney. He's another guy I'm sniffing around, trying to see if I can add. I firmly believe that, he's in that second year in this offense. He's getting more comfortable with Patrick Mahomes and his ad libs. Yes, when Travis Kelce comes back, he's going to dominate the targets, but it also will lead to opportunity for those other guys because the defense has to focus on Kelce. I'm expressing patience with Sky Moore. I still think he's in line for 1,000-yard season. I'm gonna say it and keep trying to manifest it.
That warmed my heart, Dennis. Warmed my heart right here. I needed that. I have this guy on the patience or panic, but I don't think I really should. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on it. T. Higgins. We're not worried at all, right?
Not at all. I mean,
okay.
Let's see. He tied with Chase for routes run at 94.1%. He's out there doing his job.
Yeah.
Burrow stuck it up. It was just, I think Burrow played it a little cautious because of his calf. I think he's still getting comfortable with where it was at. I mean, he had a team leading ADOT of 17.5 yards, 59.3% of the air yards. So I'm not worried about T. Higgins.
Yeah, not worried either. All right, let's move on to some quarterbacks, though. Daniel Jones, that game was one of the worst football games I think I've ever seen. I felt like I had to keep watching because it's week 1 and I missed football so much. But, man, that was brutal to watch. That was a tough one. Daniel Jones, 15 for 28, 104 yards, 2 interceptions. He did contribute 43 yards on the ground on 13 attempts. Where are we at? Patience or panic on Daniel Jones?
So initially I panicked. I was like, oh my God, he's coming back down to earth. Last year was a mirage. But we see Josh Allen have the stinker game too. And so now I'm calmed down a little bit. I'm like, okay, Allen, Dayball, great connection, lifted up. So I started to relax a little bit. The saving grace for Jones was the 43 yards on the ground. Now, he did put the ball on the ground twice, but he got both of them back. That was a little disconcerting. 104 yards passing, 2 interceptions. It's not great, Bob. It's not great. But that Dallas defense and that New York offensive line, they seem like they were made for each other, like at least from the Dallas perspective.
Right.
Jones was under pressure on 71.4% of his dropbacks. The only two with worse percentages were Aaron Rodgers and Jake Browning, who had a combined 3 dropbacks between the two of them. So he was under pressure the whole time. So in fantasy points data, they track what they call QB sacks, or how many sacks the quarterback is really responsible for. Did he run into coverage? Did he hold the ball too long? What did he do? Of the 7 sacks that the Giants gave up, Jones is credited with 0. These were all offensive line sacks. It was just a nightmare. Now Dallas has a good defense. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think when we see them play again, I think we'll see a different Daniel Jones. I am going to keep exercising patience with Daniel Jones. Not ready to panic yet.
Awesome. All right. Let's move on from Daniel Jones. Oh, I didn't mention what I thought about him. Daniel Jones for me, I don't think I'm fully in either camp. I'm similar with Sky Moore, where I worry because last year, despite him having a good year, it was 15 touchdown passes. It's not a lot of touchdown passes from a starting quarterback. Now, he did a lot on the ground, but I don't necessarily know that I want him to continue to only be winning with his legs. I want him to begin winning with his arm more often. That's what we want from all quarterbacks. Yes, we want the rushing upside too, but we want to make sure that they can win consistently with their arm. I'm curious, though, to see what happens when we're not playing as good of a defense as Dallas showed. When you have Darren Waller kind of fully into this offense, let's see if one of these young receivers emerges. Wan'Dale Robinson, when he's healthy, Jalen Hyatt. Does somebody emerge in this offense as a legitimate weapon for him? So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of in between. I want to see better numbers. I want to see him throwing the ball better, but you can only hope for so much with what he has around him. So I'm somewhat in between. Let's go to Geno Smith, and this was one of the guys that I had talked about when we were doing our bold predictions before the season started. I said, the carriage is going to turn back into a pumpkin, and Geno Smith is going to kind of just go back to being a really, really good backup. It kind of looked that way in week 1. Dennis, what were your feelings on Geno Smith?
So he did spread the ball around. Metcalf, Lockett, and Smith and Jigba all had like 5 or 6 targets. So he was doing that well. But I agree. That's always been the concern was, will he be the Geno he was the first 9 years? or will he be the Geno he was last year? And, it's one of those, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And I got to say, he's probably that first 9-year Geno. Could he shake it off? Yeah, he can. If Kenneth Walker gets things going on the ground, takes some pressure off him. Walker really dominated the running game over Charbonnet, though neither one were super effective. But I mean, if you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf, you've got to be able to be successful as a quarterback if you're even average. And Geno didn't play like that in week 1. I mean, did we all? I don't know. I'm gonna speak for the world outside of Seattle, outside of LA, when I say we all expected the Rams to stink.
Yeah,
and they came out and just kicked Seattle's butt. So I don't know. I feel like the pumpkin is turning quicker, or the carriage is turning into a pumpkin much quicker than we expected, I think.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing. If it would have been like similar to Pittsburgh where they're playing the 49ers, I'm going to give them a little bit more of a pass. But it was the Rams. The Rams are supposed to be terrible this year. Like, they were competing for the potential Caleb Williams connection there. Nope. Somebody forgot to tell the Rams that, because they came out and they balled. They played really, really well in week 1. So that was definitely a big surprise. A guy that, typically we wouldn't talk about, we don't have Joe Burrow on this list. We don't have Josh Allen on this list. But you brought up Lamar Jackson. I think it is a good question because it's a new offensive coordinator. It's a new offensive system. He just lost his top running back. Should we be a little bit panicked about Lamar, or is that overreacting?
So it kind of looked like, 2 years ago, Lamar, and, he was running, 6 for 38. So he didn't run a ton because Dobbins was doing pretty well and Justice Hill was doing pretty well, but he had the 10th lowest time to throw. He was sacked 4 times. He had 4 sacks that he avoided, so he potentially could have had 8 sacks. So they were giving up a ton of pressure. He was number 1 in RPOs with 12.9%. So I'm still, what did we see? Mark Andrews was out. We saw Zay Jones get 10 targets. What are we going to see this week if Andrews back? Will it just be Andrews getting 10 targets and Zay goes back to 3? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. 22 pass attempts is not a lot of pass attempts. That's a Justin Fieldsian kind of range there. Now, the percentage was great, 17 for 22, but only 169 yards and no touchdowns. Another not great, Bob. So I'm a little bit nervous. Lamar's been taking hits for a while, and I know he just signed the contract, and there's a lot of times where people will be like, well, he doesn't have anything to play for now. He's got his money. The other side of that coin is he doesn't have to worry about getting hurt, so he can play really hard now because he's taken care of. Yeah. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Their running game may force them to lean into the passing game. My fear is that it forces Lamar to run the ball a lot again, and who knows what happens.
Well, and we were talking earlier about Zay Flowers. I think in some ways the J.K. Dobbins injury could potentially help him. He also was on 2 designed run plays. So I wonder if, not that they're going to line him up as a running back in the backfield, but are they going to be more cognizant of screen short passes to kind of utilize that as a pseudo running game in the absence of a top tier running back for this team? So, but I am with you. I'm curious to see what it looks like exactly once Mark Andrews does come back, what the separation of target volume and all of that kind of stuff, what that looks like. So curious there. Let's move on from the quarterback position. We got time for one more, probably maybe 2. Chigo Okonkwo. He was a guy that, a lot of people were potentially high on as a sleeper tight end, but the Titans offense overall looked pretty rough. And Chigo Okonkwo did nothing in week one. Just the one target, didn't do anything with it. Dennis, are you worried about Chig?
A little bit. There was always the concern that Tennessee would be a very low volume passing offense. They have Derrick Henry. That's their MO. Now, I know Henry's been injured the last couple of years, and they brought in Tyjae Spears to take some of that load off. And then they brought in DeAndre Hopkins, who is going to dominate the targets. We saw that this weekend. Hopkins is a target hog. I don't know if he earns it or his reputation has earned it, but it didn't seem to matter because Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. Treylon Burks is there playing good. I want Okonkwo to be a thing. I just am concerned that the volume isn't going to be there. I mean, Nick Westbrook-Akine had what, 7 targets?
That was a bit of a surprise. He kind of seems to be one of those guys that always sticks around and is just not good enough to start, but good enough to be annoying for the rest of the guys you do start.
I mean, they need to use Chig like the Saints used to use Colston. That would make a lot of sense, but you need a blocking tight end for that.
Yeah. No, I am a little bit worried as well. I'm worried about that whole team in general. Are they going to just kind of blow it up and just decide to move on? Let's see if Willis has it. Let's see if Levis has it. Let's see if somebody else has it, because right now what they're doing is not looking great. And if they're realistic with themselves, best case scenario, they are second in the division, sneak in the wild card, and get demolished by somebody in the playoffs. Like, that's kind of where they're at this point.
The wild card, though, is that Mike Vrabel seems to get that team up to play, and they get a 1-point victory, a 2-point victory. They win ugly. You know, that's it. He's like, just let me in the door. I'll win I just need in, and then I'll figure out a way to win.
Yep, he's a great coach. Well, Dennis, that about wraps things up for us. Thank you once again. Obviously, come on every week. We love having you on here. Tell everybody what you're doing heading into week 2 here. Anything you guys are working on?
Man, it's in season. We have probably 25 weekly articles going on right now. The Rookie Report by Ryan Wilhelm, Buys and Sells with Dan Toomey, Starts and Sits, IDP articles, injury articles. Go to dynastynerds.com. Check it all out.
Yep, it's a great time of year. I know you got your show that you do as well on the round table that you guys do a great job with. So lots of things going on there. You can always find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. You can find him at Culture Coach on the Twitter machine. Lots of stuff coming out right now. I have lots of YouTube content coming out, doing a lot of stuff in our Discord, so starting to get more involved there. All kinds of good stuff. Head to dynastynerds.com for all that goodness. Check out the Dynasty Nerds show that comes out and drops each and every Wednesday. Thank you guys for tuning in. Happy week 2. We'll see you next week.